Welcome to the Exam Room Live, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Thanks so very much for taking a little time to join us for the healthiest half hour anywhere you will find on the web today. We are live on both Facebook and on YouTube. And on tap today, oh my goodness gracious, I always say that today's show is the biggest show in the history of shows. But today, I am really telling you that today is, in fact, maybe the biggest show in the history of shows ever, because we have with us the LaJaunie family, who together lost more than 1,000 pounds after going vegan. Yes, a half ton they shed after adopting a plant-based diet. So they are here to share their remarkable journey with us and tell us a little bit about their cookbook. So LaJaunie family, I cannot wait to get this full story from you guys. You guys are just incredible. Now, also on the show today, we have Dr. Baxter Montgomery. He is in the house. He is the esteemed plant-based cardiologist based down in Texas. He is here to answer questions about your heart, your diet, and how plants can help fight back against a disease that is killing more Americans than any other. Dr. Montgomery, looking forward to catching up with you, sir.
Hello. Looking forward to being here.
All right, so get your questions ready. If you have a question for Dr. Montgomery, go ahead and post that in the comment section now. We will be opening up the doctor's mailbag in just a little bit. But first, before we go any further, let's get you caught up with what is going on in the world. Here are your health headlines for Wednesday, July 8th, 2020. The number of cases of coronavirus continues to surge in the U.S., with confirmed infections now approaching 3 million. And as the caseload rapidly trends skyward, the death rate is dropping. However, Dr. Anthony Fauci says Americans should not be lulled into a false sense of security. Scores of hospitals in Florida have run out of beds to treat critically ill patients in the ICU, and medical facilities in other states, such as Texas and Arizona, are quickly approaching the same predicament. Fauci says the lower death rate is partially due to increasing numbers of young people becoming infected, but also points out that does not mean that they are not contagious or won't become dangerously ill themselves. More than 131,000 people in the U.S. have died from COVID-19, according to records kept by Johns Hopkins, nearly twice as many as any other country. In other news, 7 out of 10 adults are worried that poor health will keep them from doing all the things they'd like to do in life. The joint survey conducted by the American Heart and American Diabetes Associations finds that people with diabetes, heart disease, or who have had a stroke are particularly worried. The concern, though, not just limited to the ill, as more than 70% of people under the age of 55 also worry that their family members won't be healthy enough to join in on the important moments of life. 80% of respondents also say COVID-19 has made them cherish their love-filled memories even more. Heart disease, by the way, is the leading cause of death in the U.S., but experts say more than half of all cases are preventable. More on that later with Dr. Montgomery. A study of more than 1,800 children finds those who are overweight or obese as toddlers can show signs of heart disease as early as 11 years old. Research published in the journal Pediatrics reveals the arteries of some children have already begun to harden before their teenage years. Researchers say the longer the child is overweight, the greater the risk of having heart issues at a young age. In other news, Joey Chestnut set a record by eating 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes at the annual Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest over the weekend. And in related news, nobody cares. Television ratings for the annual Gorge Fest hit their lowest levels in 15 years. And for those keeping score at home, those 75 hot dogs add up to about 2 weeks worth of fat and calories. And finally, the saying goes that you can't exercise off a Big Mac, or in this case, a hot dog. But Chestnut and his fellow competitors may want to give that a try. And if they do, they can do so in style with the new vegan sneakers from tennis sensation Roger Federer. The 8-time Wimbledon champ says the Roger Center Court Zero Series shoes were created with sustainability in mind. The vegan leather used in production has just 30% of the environmental footprint of a traditional sneaker. How about that? Time now for one of the most incredible stories you will ever hear. Like millions of us, Josh LaJaunie grew tired of being overweight. At 420 pounds, the devoted New Orleans Saints fan, his quality of life was suffering. Frustrated, he laced up his sneakers and began to run. Eventually, all the way to the cover of Runner's World magazine. And along the way, he also shed an incredible 230 pounds and began eating a plant-based diet, all of which was done under the watchful eye of his family, who then became inspired to follow in his footsteps. Today, they have lost a jaw-dropping 1,000 pounds and are healthier and happier than ever before. Here now to share their remarkable journey with us and talk about their new cookbook, please welcome the LaJaunie family to the Exam Room Live. Oh my goodness, what a treat this is. Thank you guys so very much for joining us today.
It's an honor, Chuck. Thanks.
Josh, we were talking just a couple of weeks ago about your story, and you just kind of randomly threw in there that, oh yeah, my family members also went plant-based and they've got a cookbook, and now we've lost more than 1,000 pounds together. I mean, you just threw that out there so matter of fact. I was like, what? No, hold on. We got to get this full story. So who is with you today?
My brother, Dustin, and my mom, Ramona.
Hi.
Dustin and Ramona, I mean, congratulations to all of you on your success. Ramona, I want to start with you. To see the success that Josh was having, losing all of that weight and then becoming the poster boy for running on the cover of the magazine, what was going through your mind? I imagine you would have been just busting your buttons proud.
I was extremely proud. At first, when he came to me and said, "Mom, I got a new way that I think we need to start eating," I wasn't on board at all. I thought he had lost his mind. And but by example and perseverance, he made me realize or made me want to try the whole food plant-based dieting. And so it took me about 3 months. And once I got on board, I saw benefits within 6 weeks. I was able to get off my blood pressure medicine. I started losing weight. I have scoliosis, so I have a lot of trouble with arthritis. That minimized a lot of my issues with arthritis. And I just felt a lot better. I felt like getting up and exercise, and I had a lot more energy. And at that time, my dad was still living, and I was the cook. So I began to feed him whole food plant-based. And his story is still miraculous too. He lost over 150 pounds, I think, and
in his 80s.
In his 80s,
wow.
And he got off of all medicines but 2.
Yeah, and the thing was he really had a boost in his mobility because of the weight loss. Like he didn't really know he wanted to lose weight, but boy, once he lost weight,
he's probably one of the few that actually had a hover round. And then the older he got, the less he ate.
The hover round got dust on it. Yep.
Yeah,
but it made it possible for us to keep him home all the way to the end, because we could bathe him and shower him and handle him, and he was happy and he could move around and get in a truck and go on rides. So yeah, this lifestyle has done so much more than just help us get unfat.
Yes.
No kidding. Dustin, let me ask you, when Josh first comes to you and says, "Hey, I've got this new way of eating," and you see the success that he's having, were you just immediately all in, or were you a little bit apprehensive?
Yeah, not even close all in. I thought he was crazy because he was just telling me a week, not far sooner, he was thinking about paleo, more lean meat and stuff. And so I knew he was putting his feelers out there, but at least he was trying stuff and doing it. And what really got my attention was his results. And when he turned me on to a few documentaries that I watched and kind of educated myself, it made too much sense not to at least try it. And then the results got me hooked as well. I did plenty of yo-yo dieting like a bunch of people have done in the past. And, if you lose 20, you put back 40, you lose 40, you put back 60. So I've done everything else, and I, gave it a shot and just kept going plant-based, dropping off different things. And it's just, I can do it consistently, which is one of the different things that all of the other diets I couldn't do. It was, it just wasn't a thing that I could do in my daily life. And this is working for me, and not only working for me, it's giving me newfound health off of 3 different medications. And now I'm an ultra marathoner. I finished 2 ultra marathons last year.
Ooh, do you and Josh go out running together?
We do.
Yes, we do. When he's looking for a slow pace run, yeah.
Josh, we've talked about how important, just how proud you were to be on the cover of Runner's World magazine. But how does that compare to the feeling that you have for leading by example and setting that example for your family, and then watching the transformation that they were able to have?
The Runner's World magazine is like, it's just like a little sticker on the journey. The big journey, the heavy lifting. The thing I'm most proud of has been the change in my family's health. Like, in learning about what made me fat, I learned about what was killing us. I learned about the connection to cardiovascular disease and food. And so taking that, running that race of trying to inform my family in a way that will resonate with them in such a way that they will be spurred to behave differently, even though this is ingrained in us. That race, that journey that's everything. All the other things, the 100-mile finishes, any medals that I might have, any things that I might have won, those are just like little trinkets and memories. The big picture for me is to have a happy, healthy, sustained family, and that has been the most rewarding thing of all of it, is to be able to sit here with my mom, to think about just the 3 of us. It's 1,000 pounds as a family, but just the 3 of us is over 500 pounds of belly fat. I mean,
Yeah,
you
man.
get it. You get it.
Yeah. Is it the same for you, Ramona? I lost 280 pounds. And is it the same for you when you wake up in the morning? I still feel like, wow, I can't believe that I'm in this new body every day. And it's been 10 years for me, but every day I wake up feeling that way. Do you have that same thing?
I do. And the thing that I like about this way of eating, like Josh said, it's sustainable. I have never lost weight and kept it off for 7 years. I have never done that. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my journey. I started off, my heaviest weight was 350 pounds. And I had tried to lose weight for years, of course. And I tried it all. And I finally decided I was going to get the lap band. So I went and I got the lap. I lost down to 320. And I got the lap band. And I probably lost down to 170, 175. And then it just...
Speed it up, Mom.
I'm sorry. And then...
It's all good.
And then I put it all back on with the lap band. And so I felt hopeless at the point that Josh began to show me this. And so now I don't have the lap band. I went and had it removed. And I feel amazing every day, and I'm very thankful that I now have this body that I know I can keep and sustain.
That's fantastic. All right, let's put some numbers out there. So all told, Ramona, how much weight did you lose?
I lost 105 pounds from when I started with whole food plant-based. Yes.
Ooh, that is fantastic. What about you, Dustin?
195 to date.
All right, what to date? All right, so you still got a couple more you want to take off?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah, we all do. Everybody. Yeah. Hey, who don't?
Yep. The thing about the plant-based diet, it just gave me that new North Star and gave me something to be aware of. And because so much unconscious eating got me to where I was, and just bringing attention to it and having that as a North Star is the consistency for me. And, of course I have rough patches, but yeah, absolutely. I still have more weight to lose. Absolutely.
And real quick, just going down the line, starting with you, Josh, how many medications were you able to get off of because of your transformation?
I wasn't on any medications other than the antidepressant.
Okay.
But I did come off of that. My doctor did tell me he was thinking about putting me on a blood pressure medication because I had been consistently high blood pressure the last few visits. But yeah, just the antidepressant stuff.
Ramona, what about you?
I was able to get off my blood pressure medicine within 6 weeks. And I was having to take Advil, probably 4 Advil every day for my arthritis. I no longer have to do that, you know. And so, and just feeling the energy. I joined the gym July when I started that way of eating in June. I joined the gym in July and wasn't very optimistic that I would stick with it. Well, I am still doing exercise.
You go ahead.
On a regular basis.
You go ahead. Dustin, what about you? Were you able to get off of any medication?
3 prescription medications, yes. I was on antidepressant. I was on an acid reflux medication, prescription grade, and I was also on high blood pressure medicine.
Man, that is
at the age of 30. At the age of 30.
It's amazing. I remember that stuff. It really does catch up with you so quickly. We heard at the top of the show the study about toddlers, and I remember being in high school, like 15 years old, being put on medication for high blood pressure. How quickly a poor diet catches up with you. I want to bring in Dr. Baxter Montgomery now. Dr. Montgomery, we've heard about this amazing metamorphosis on the outside. We've touched a little bit on the medications that they've weaned off of, but I want to know from a cardiology standpoint, what happened to them internally? How much better are their hearts pumping right now?
Yeah, that's first of all, congratulations to the LaJaunie family. I mean, this is amazing. And, I wish you continue to get your story out because I think what you're doing is going to save many more lives. I think you've already saved many more lives than you know. So continue to get your story out. But I think it's an important point you make because we look at weight loss, which is probably one of the easier things to measure, and it's an important thing to measure. What we found in our studies is that when we look at patients, they lose, say, on average, a certain percentage of their weight. And when we compare the amount of weight loss based on percentage of weight compared to other things that improve, such as inflammation, reduction in white blood cell counts, and the improvement in biochemistry overall, we see a 6-fold improvement in other things compared to weight. So, for instance, if you look at the amount of weight that you lost and say calculate the percentage of weight you lost, you could probably take that percentage of weight and multiply it times 6, maybe even 6 to 7 or 8. And you can say that's an estimated improvement I've got in other areas, such as the cellular level. We see reduction in inflammation. And many of them talked about reduction in medications coming off of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And the reason this is happening is not just because there's a reduction in weight and reduction in pressure on the joints, which does contribute to that. But what's happening with the healthy diet is that you're losing inflammation. So those joints are actually healing. So many people think, well, if you lose weight, then your arthritis gets better, your joint feels better. But no, there's a biochemical process that's happening at the cellular level, at the tissue level, that's happening independent of weight loss. Also coming off antidepressants, we've seen many individuals who reports improved sense of euphoria, improved sense of happiness just by nourishing body properly. And it's not too far of a stretch because if we give an antidepressant to cause a biochemical effect on the brain, well, foods cause a much greater biochemical effect in a positive way without the side effects. So what you're seeing evidence of here is even though on the outside we say, 1,000-pound weight loss, and that's great, but what's happening is a much greater effect at the cellular and tissue level. So their biochemistry is improving 6 to 7, maybe 8 times more so than they're losing weight. So this is truly a remarkable thing and a very powerful change that we're seeing in 3 remarkable individuals.
Oh man, Dr. Montgomery, stick around. We have much more to discuss here coming up in just a little bit. But LaJaunie family, a lot of people are worried when they first adopt that vegan diet, like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to eat my favorite foods again. But you all have managed to take your family recipes and make them healthy plant-based options, and now you've compiled it into a new cookbook called Pure Ambrosia. Tell me a little bit about this cookbook. What kind of recipes are in there?
It's mainly traditional foods that we're used to eating, and as a mom, I'm sure most moms, they try to show their love through what they feed their family. And so I didn't want to give up our traditional foods, so I just tried to make them healthier. And so we have gumbo, and we have jambalaya, and we have turnip stew, and cabbage rolls, and stuffed bell peppers, and meatloaf or lentil loaf. And so it's just a lot of the regular old traditional meals that we've turned healthy. And Dustin also helped with some of the recipes.
I've always loved to cook. I mean, that's one of the ways I got up to be so big, is I like to cook. But I took this new diet as a challenge because it's easy to make any dish taste good when you're using cream and butter and cheese and bacon. So let's make the dish taste good, but also not kill us while eating it is the new challenge. And I just like recreating some of the old time dishes that give us comfort without taking our health.
How much of a challenge was that for you, Dustin, to recreate these things in healthier versions?
All it takes is just get in the kitchen and try. It's not that hard. Just relearn a little bit. It's to do without a little oil means you have to deglaze with a little water. I mean, it's not that hard. You just have to re-educate yourself on why you shouldn't be using certain things. Understand the whole game you're getting out of the meal, not just how it tastes. And then just try. Just do something.
What's your favorite recipe in there, Ramona? If there's one that somebody goes and picks up a copy of the cookbook today on Amazon, what is the first recipe that they should turn to?
My favorite, the one I worked the hardest on to get right, was my gumbo.
Very good.
Okay. Is that unanimous throughout the family? Is gumbo the way to go?
It's very good.
Can't go wrong with a good bowl of gumbo. And
especially when I'm helping her cook it.
It's nice to have the gumbos because there are some things that in our cultural norms that should go away. Like they're like fried pieces of fat, gratins, and hoghead cheese. These things.
Uh-oh. Appears we may have technical difficulties right now with the LaJaunie family, but nonetheless, I will hope to get them back in the show here in just a little bit. Josh, can you hear me now? No. He's kind of not looking good at the moment, but that's okay. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to put a link to the Pure Ambrosia cookbook in the comments. Hey, there we go. I think we're back.
Sorry. Phone call.
Don't people know you're on the show right now? I mean, come on, people. But anyway, so the cookbook is just phenomenal. You were saying like it's important to be able to take these and adapt them and just make them healthier versions.
That's right. But there's also areas, if you're Cajun, that we have to be open to getting rid of. Fried pieces of fat, like we call them gratins or hoghead cheese. Some of these things aren't fixable, and it's okay. We have to build the strength inside of ourselves to move past these options because they play a big role in hurting us disproportionately compared to the rest of the country.
All right, Josh, Ramona, Dustin, thank you guys so very much. Your story is just, I mean, it really almost moves me to tears. I am so proud of each and every one of you for what you're doing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And I'm a huge fan of Dr. Montgomery. I'm honored.
Me too.
All right, man. We're making connections today. This is fantastic.
Well, I'm going to become a huge fan of your gumbo. So
there you go.
I'll get the book. We'll put it in our restaurant. So we'll have to bring you on our restaurant.
I love it. I love what you're doing with food. It's beautiful, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Go pick up a copy of Pure Ambrosia on Amazon right now. LaJaunie family, thank you guys so much for inspiring everybody with us today.
Thank
you.
Bye.
All right. Now, before we move on, if you have a question for Dr. Montgomery, anything related to heart health and plant-based diets, go ahead and post that in the comments section. Now we will be opening up the doctor's mailbag in just a little bit. But Dr. Montgomery, I want to talk more with you about the connection between heart disease and diets, because heart disease really is the nation's most notorious assassin. And some estimates say that half or even more of all of these deaths can be prevented. In your estimation, is that accurate?
Yes, not only prevented, but also reversed. And I'm going to share a couple of patients that we actually are currently managing, who we are working through in our program to show some of the improvements in the heart function. And we've have data, we've published some case series and also data showing how the mechanism of a defined plant-based diet can help reverse these illnesses. And as you so rightly pointed out, heart disease is the #1 cause of morbidity and mortality. And congestive heart failure is, the key component in that. It's sort of the endpoint of, virtually most or every form of heart disease other than sudden cardiac arrest, short of it. But heart failure is a big problem. So what I'd like to do is before we get to the questions, quickly go through some case stories of some patients. And I think it's always helpful to show your audience exactly how we work through these things. And so the first patient I'll share with, let me just get my slides going here. Patient 1, this is a gentleman had flown to our facility in Houston from Connecticut. And he had been diagnosed with heart failure for over a year. He had type 2 diabetes, hyperlipidemia. He had severe shortness of breath at rest and with minimal exertion. And he was told that his heart pumping function or ejection fraction was about 20% or less than 20% about a year prior to coming. He had not seen a physician in about 8 months. So a quick synopsis of his story: congestive heart failure. He had a single chamber defibrillator, which is part of the standard treatment of patients with heart failure to prevent sudden death. He had type 2 diabetes, as I mentioned. He'd had a stroke in the past and elevated lipids. But the main things that he had substernal chest tightness. He was saying about walking in the airport trying to get to us, he would have to stop every 10, 20 feet to relieve his chest discomfort, catch his breath. So he was having a very difficult time. We saw him for the first time of any physician in about 8 months. This is the list of medications he was on. It's a long list, as you can see. I'll point out Entresto is a heart failure medication. This is the maximum dose. Torsemide is a diuretic or fluid pill. This is a very high dose of this. And atorvastatin is a statin, a cholesterol medication, plus his diabetes medication, a couple of other heart failure medications. So he was on quite a few medications. I was a little bit concerned. His blood pressure, upper systolic blood pressure was 97 the first day he came to see us. So we had first day seeing him, we didn't know anything about him. We ordered labs, blood tests the first day, but obviously we didn't have the results. But this is what came back when we saw him 1 week later. We had made some mild changes to the medications. We came back and noticed glucose level is high, but this is not so worrisome. What was worrisome is this creatinine level of 5.08. The GFR, which is the filtration rate of the kidney, you can see 60 is normal. His is at 14. And this is the level that's at the point where you need dialysis. Below 15, you recommend dialysis. So we were concerned. This is what we had drawn a week early. We saw him maybe 5 days later because we see patients very frequently. It started to detox at this point. So we felt that some of it was probably dehydration. So we made some changes by giving him IV fluids. We made further changes in medication. The next day he came back, his creatinine level was even higher. So we had to admit him to the hospital. And I continued to detox him in the hospital. He got food from our nutrition center. And we continue to make changes with IV hydration, medication weaning, and the like. So what I'm going to do the next few slides, show you some of the changes in his weight, heart rate, blood pressure in the course of about 2 weeks, really 4 to 6 weeks that we treated him, and how he improved over time with some of the changes. Throughout this time, he was on the detox regimen. Now, his average weight loss over time bounced around a little bit, large because we were giving him IV fluids and removing the diuretics. But notice from baseline to the end, he lost about 10 pounds. His systolic blood pressure was very low at the beginning, and it went even lower. This is before he started giving him IV hydration. So we hydrated him because he was very dehydrated from the large dose of fluid pills or diuretics he was on. And this is somehow some of the side effects of the medication can occur. So the blood pressure bounced around, but improved significantly over time. His diastolic blood pressure, again, bounced around, but improved over time. His heart rate, he was on a beta blocker, a drug that lowers heart rate. We weaned it a little bit, and his heart rate bounced around a little bit. So what I'm showing is how the different changes in the patient's hemodynamic. And oftentimes we give these before and after stories. We show you some bad numbers at the beginning and some great numbers at the end. And what I'm trying to do is show you that it's not always a smooth curve. There are a lot of adjustments that are being made along the way. But let's look at the kidney function. His creatinine, which you want this number to be lower, was 5.8. It got worse because he was still on some diuretic. But then once he continued the detox, that number went down. The glomerular filtration rate is the rate at which the kidneys clean the blood. So you want that number to be up. That number was at 12 at the very beginning. It went down initially because he continued to be on the diuretics. But once we started to hydrate him and wean him off the diuretics and put him on the plant-based detox diet, his kidney function got better, almost reaching normal levels. Far above this line, this red line here represents where you would need dialysis. So when he came to us, he was at a point below where he needed dialysis. So we got him from a point of needing dialysis and getting off. And so many patients with heart failure can also have associated kidney disease. Here's another slide showing his functional status. The very first day he came, we put him on a treadmill. He was only able to go a little over 1 minute. That's on the Bruce protocol. It's one of the more aggressive protocols. But notice how this, just look at the blue bars. If he went from 1 minute to 3 minutes, almost 4 minutes to over 3 minutes. So his exercise capacity on the Bruce protocol, which is the more aggressive exercise protocol, tripled. Now, we did a modified Bruce protocol at baseline, a closer baseline, we did 4 minutes. And over time, his exercise capacity on a modified Bruce protocol tripled as well. So in summary, his exercise capacity tripled over the period of time, over 4 weeks that he was undergoing our treatment. Look at the heart rate, baseline heart rate, and peak exercise heart rate. You want your resting or baseline heart rate to be relatively low. You want to be able to get your peak heart rate high. So you want a significant differential between the baseline heart rate and the peak heart rate. Many athletes, endurance runners, will have a very low baseline heart rate, and their peak heart rates, it won't be super high, but it'll be a big delta between the baseline and peak heart rate. So what you want to do is pay attention to the difference between the blue bar and the green bar next to it. So at baseline, he had a delta of about 12 between baseline and peak heart rate. It improved a little bit here and a little bit there. So if I averaged the delta between the baseline and peak heart rate of the first three exercise tests, I came up with about 16.1, or excuse me, 16.7. But toward the end of his treatment status, his delta baseline to peak heart rate increased. That average was about 31. So it showed that his hemodynamic, his physiology was improving. His baseline heart rate was lower. His peak heart rate was higher. Look at the medication we were able to wean at baseline compared to what we started on. Most of the things we started him on, sea moss, that's a superfood. Brain-on is a blue-green algae. We put a lidoderm patch because he had gout. We started him on CoQ10. He continued the vitamin D. And the only prescription drug he remained on was a beta blocker called Biastolic. And so we were able to wean a lot of his medications, including the diuretic and so on. So he had to go back to Connecticut. There's more work to be done with him. We're still following him through telemedicine. He'll probably come back and see us over time with more treatment on his heart and so on. So there's still more work to go. Let me quickly show one other patient. This is a young man who was diagnosed with dilated cardiomyopathy. He's 29 years old, and he was trying to avoid a defibrillator implant. The studies show if your ejection fraction is below 35%, you benefit from a defibrillator implant. So he came with dilated cardiomyopathy, hypertension, history of asthma, palpitations, chest discomfort, and the like. And so a lot of problems for just a 29-year-old. So in summary, dilated cardiomyopathy is ejection fraction between 20 and 25%. When we did our echocardiogram, it was 29%. We started him on some raw detox. Now, he was a little bit back and forth. He started a basic plant-based diet. We would do an aggressive raw detox, go to maintenance with some cooked foods. These are the medications he started on. The baseline blood work that he started on, his kidney function was a little bit abnormal, as you can see here. He also had some elevated lipids, as you can see there. His pro-BNP level was a little bit abnormal. Below 100 is normal. So let me show you some of the changes over time. Again, modest fluctuation in weight with a modest weight loss. He's a very heavy gentleman, but despite only a modest weight loss, very significant reduction in systolic blood pressure was improvement. And this is a good change for him. And also the diastolic blood pressure lowered was a good change in him. And he needed less medications over time. His heart rate improved. A lower heart rate is a good sign of better cardiovascular function. So he had a 9-point reduction in heart rate. Notice these numbers fluctuate. Probably had a bump here because we were reducing the medication, and you get a rebound increase in some of the numbers. Look at here, the creatinine, kidney function. It was abnormal at first at 1.59. This is almost normal at 1.2. This is the creatinine level. That corresponds to a filtration rate that was borderline abnormal at 69. Greater than 90 is normal. So we saw that his kidney function went from borderline abnormal to normal, which means that indirectly it's a sign that the heart is circulating the blood better. Cholesterol levels. His total cholesterol, although it seemed to have gone up some, he had pro-BNP that went down, and the total cholesterol bounces around a little bit. And we noticed that this actually came down over time, and we don't have that to start. Part of that was that we stopped the statin drug that he had been on, so you got a rebound increase in cholesterol, but that rebound did not take him to an abnormal level. And so we typically do that. So what did we do? We had to increase the metoprolol for the heart rate, but and continue the lisinopril, but we stopped this proton pump inhibitor. We started on magnesium and vitamin C as supplements in addition to a natural plant-based diet. So what I'm sharing with you here is the overall approach that we take was an integrative therapy. Sometimes we adjust the medications up and down. The second patient wasn't as compliant, but it was over, say, several months that we treated him. But he's getting better despite the fact that we're making adjustment in his medications. So the point is that these diseases can improve very significantly. And the ejection fraction of the second patient, which was 29% at baseline, that actually went up to 36% after this period of time of treating him. And we're still placing him on intermittent detoxes. He's planning to do a juice detox cleanse. And these intermittent cleanses will help us get his physiology improved and also allow us to completely wean his medication. So I'll stop right there and let your audience ask questions, and we'll try to address whatever questions that they have.
Yeah, just a couple of remarkable stories. The thing that I take away from that second one in particular is I believe that you mentioned that patient still has a ways to go as far as getting that weight off. But even though that weight is still there are measured improvements inside the body. And I think that if somebody keeps that in mind as they're beginning to try to lead a healthier lifestyle, that will help. Because all too often, if you think, my God, I've got 300 pounds to lose, why even start? It can seem like an insurmountable obstacle, but if your insides are getting healthier, and that's not necessarily anything that you can feel or see, but it is something that is still measurable, I think that could be enough of a boost to say, you know what, I got this. That's
exactly right. And when I tell my patients, take the amount of weight loss you have and multiply it times at least by 6. It can be by 6 or 10, and that's the amount of improvement you're getting at the cellular level. And that's the data we've shown over the years when we do a percentage comparison. We look at weight compared to biochemical changes. So that should be something that's very encouraging. So if you're only losing about 2% or 5% or whatever, take that percentage and multiply it times 6 to 10. And that's a percentage of improvement that you're getting at the cellular level, especially with a plant-based diet.
All right, let's open up the doctor's mailbag and answer your questions. Get to as many as we can before the end of the show today. So go ahead and post them in the comment section right now. Dr. Montgomery, the first question comes to us from Daisy. She emailed this in, as a matter of fact. She writes, I'm in my mid-40s, I'm healthy, and have always been interested in fitness and nutrition. But when my mom and my aunts and uncles on my father's side of the family became insulin-dependent diabetics a few years ago, I decided to begin to watch my starch and fruit intake. And then I decided to go whole food plant-based. Last year, though, when I did my annual blood work, everything was normal except my triglycerides, which had always been between the mid-50s and mid-70s. They suddenly then jumped to 106. I know this is still considered normal, but I'm just curious if you have ever heard of anything like this before. Coincidental, or what is the explanation?
So, you get mild changes in these numbers, and there are a lot of reasons behind it. If your body undergoes changes, one thing we've seen in patients when we put them on an aggressive cleanse or detox, sometimes the numbers will appear to get worse before they get better. And there are a lot of explanations behind this. And one thing that we've seen over time, especially with blood pressure and sometimes with cholesterol, when we look at our groups of patients, this is over thousands of patients over, say, 10 years. We've always seen a very small group, a small percentage, whose numbers at 4 weeks will get worse. And we know that your body undergoes changes. It's almost like if you go into an old house and you start to clean it up. At baseline, the house looks a little bit unkept, but once you start to go into old cabinets and old rugs and you start cleaning up, you start to make a bigger mess in the cleaning up process. And so if somebody were to take a picture of the house before you started cleaning, and then come at some point in time when you're middle of cleaning and removing things, the house will look worse at that point than it'll look at baseline. But that's just the transition phase of the cleaning process. The body probably does something similar to that, when in fact you draw blood work at baseline and then you check at some point later on. Everybody cleanses their bodies at different rates. So you may see some of these numbers get worse at certain points during the cleansing phase. So this may be one explanation as to why you see your triglyceride level a little bit high. And other things we see when patients were weaning medications, we'll see rebound increases. Like the one patient I showed you, his cholesterol was a little bit elevated. We had stopped the statin drug, but it had not gone up too high. So basically, if you continue to eat a clean diet, these numbers should level off over time.
All right, let's try to blow through a few more here quickly. This one is from Lori, wrote in at 12:11. This has been in the queue for a while. Lori, we did not forget you. She writes, there is so much controversy between plant-based disciplines on the recommended amount of salt, oil, fat, and sugar. So what are the healthy numbers to keep your sodium, fat, and sugar in check to prevent disease?
That's a great question. So the thing is that I like to recommend that my patients let the plants decide. By that, I mean, if you're eating whole foods in the natural, as close to the natural state as possible, then the amount of sodium and potassium and things in the foods will dictate what your needs are, and your body will extract these nutrients and minerals according to what your needs are. There's some foods that are saltier than others, but those foods are naturally salty. You don't have to add salt to it. So we tell our patients to add minimal amounts of sodium. We tell them to avoid oils altogether. Consume the whole food. If you're going to consume olive, you should consume the oil. I mean, the olive itself, not the olive oil. So really let the foods dictate these things. And I think that helps get rid of the controversy.
Montgomery Heart and Wellness Center, you have a full-blown restaurant, I do believe, and you really teach patients all about nutrition. I mean, you flat out, you serve them their prescriptions. So we have a question from Lee at 1242. She wants to know, are your patients very open to your treatments with a plant-based diet?
Well, yes, they are, generally speaking. We have a skewed population. Early on, when I started practicing this way, it wasn't quite a skewed population. So we had a few people would pass out nearly when I'd recommend this, but most people have gotten the scouting report, and when they come in, they have an idea of what they're going to undergo. However, we still have some people who are a little bit resistant. We have different approaches to get people on board. We have miniature boot camps. We have a detox. We'll put them on a detox for 7 to 10 days and have them come back. And once they realize the results, then they become more willing to go further. Having the food to taste makes a difference. So a full-blown restaurant, and now we've expanded to a grocery store where we can actually literally prescribe groceries for a patient. We find that when they go to the supermarkets, they get foods that are not as healthy. So having the food there helps, and also having quick programs where they get fast results makes a difference as well. And so this gets them to buy in faster.
Question from Donna, 1241. Can you speak to the benefits of algae? I want to start using it, but I'm not sure where to start.
Yeah, algae is actually one of the superfoods that we use. These sea vegetables are rich in minerals and vitamins, and they have many nutrients that we know about and many that we've yet to discover. I use the blue-green algae. The brand is E3 Live, but it's high in minerals and nutrients, and so we have our patients add it to their smoothies or consume it straight. But algae, I would just consume them as a food. It's a food additive. So I don't think you have to do anything special. If you get one of spirulina or one of these other algae, just add it to your smoothies or add it to any of your other foods, or you might make a raw pudding or something. You add it to that. But you can just consume it in any way you'd like and just add it to your diet. I think it should be fine.
Megan writes in 1243 from Facebook. Would you recommend a juice cleanse occasionally for relatively healthy individuals? And if so, for how long?
Great question. Now, we have quite a bit of experience with juice cleanses. And although it appears to be somewhat controversial, what I can say from my experience with thousands of patients and many of the people in our data that we published were consuming smoothies and juices, they have to be raw. You want to get them from the best produce available. There are some, health supermarkets and juice places that does a pretty good job of juicing. But we've had people do juice cleanses anywhere from 15 to 30 days. We've had people do 45-day juice cleanses. I've done a 101-day juice cleanse. And we've just seen remarkable results. Many of my diabetics whom I have a lot of trouble just with the raw diet or whole food plant-based diet, getting their numbers correct. When we put them on a juice cleanse, 30-day juice cleanse, their numbers correct. And so it decreases inflammation. So healthy people can use a juice cleanse as well as someone who's sick. So you can do it once a year if you're healthy, I think is a good frequency, or twice a year. I would say 30 days. I wouldn't do just 7 days, because the first 7 days you're just going through detox. So I would do at least a minimum 15 days or maybe 30 days. And then if you can tolerate that, just kind of challenge yourself further. So juice cleanse, in my opinion, are healthy ways of integrating into a healthy maintenance, nutrition maintenance, health maintenance.
All right, here's a question from a fellow medical worker here. Paula, 1243. I work in acute inpatient rehab and see lots of these clinical pictures. Wish I knew what I could do to go about educating them about these lifestyle changes. Any advice that you can give to Paula?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's these patients are at, you have an advantage because these patients have a lot of incentive to improve their health. And one way, just show them some videos. If you have a cell phone, you can just find some, store some quick videos that you can show them, some quick stories. PCM have stories, we have stories. Just give them some information up front. And so just some information is the first thing. And if they're in a rehab and they're willing to try a plant-based diet, discuss it with the family, have them discuss it with their family, have them do, a week or 2 weeks, if they're in these rehab facilities, it's especially long-term acute care facility, but some rehab facilities, people are there for several weeks. So that gives you an opportunity for, if they try just a plant-based diet for a week, 7 to 10 days, they can start to see results. And that would be the first step toward encourage them. So when it's nothing more powerful than an individual seeing results when they try the program.
Lots of questions about fasting here. Monica, 1245. If someone goes on a water-only fast, how much water should they be drinking each day?
Yeah, so we do intermittent fasting, and so we have protocols. We do not water fast anyone for more than 48 hours. Largely because if you're on a longer fast, you need to be on observation. True North has water fasting. It's a water fasting clinic. And so if you do a fasting, personally, I fasted water fast for 6 days, 6.5 days. Beyond that, you want to be under some observation. I'm able to draw my own labs. But just to answer your question, if you're doing a fast, I would say 48 hours, no more than 3 days in a row. and you can do it intermittently with a raw diet or juicing. And so I try to get people to drink close to a gallon of water a day. That's not hard and fast, but you certainly don't want to be below 64 ounces. You just want to keep yourself hydrated. Now, water is an amazing diuretic. So when I've done water fasting, it's going to keep you running to the bathroom, but keep yourself hydrated. About 64 ounces or more than that, or up to a gallon a day is what I tend to recommend. I do the same thing with juicings.
Time for just a couple more. This one from Dinah at 1251. Interesting question. You have often suggested eating raw fruits and vegetables in the morning and during the day and cooked foods in the evening. Does that mean we should eat our cooked oatmeal at night?
That's a great question. The answer is yes. And the reason I do that is that you want to consider the transit time of food. So a raw food is going to have a faster transit time than a cooked food. And also the hydrating foods. So like the hydrating fruits, you want to consume those more in the morning. So if you eat an apple or a peach or watermelon or pineapple, those more hydrating foods are going to have a faster transit time. Your dark leafy greens will be sort of intermediate, but then the cooked foods later in the day, obviously not too late, but 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, something like that, because, or at least I should say last in terms of your meals, because you want the faster foods to go through first and then the slower transit foods to go through later.
All right. The final question comes to us from Billy. He writes, I lost an incredible amount of weight a few years ago and thought I was doing really well, but I went to the hospital after a freak injury and was stunned when scans revealed that I had atherosclerosis. Easy for me to say. What can I do to reverse this? Is it even possible?
Well, the thing is, you can continue to reverse it. Remember, the weight loss, you want to consider the mechanism of weight loss. When people lose weight, somebody can lose 1,000 pounds by, liposuction or amputation of a leg or whatever the case may be. So the mechanism of weight loss is going to be important. Lots of people get gastric bypass and they lose weight. They do get some biochemical benefits, but not necessarily all the biochemical benefits. So be conscious of the type of food you're eating. It's going to be the mechanism of what you're eating. We talk to our patients, and I'll see a patient, I'll put them on the detox, they come back, and say, oh gosh, I lost 20 pounds. And so that's wonderful. What are you eating? And they'll say, well, I've been eating, pretty much what you tell, except I have a little bit of this, except I have a little bit of that. I say, look, that's not satisfactory. I want you to be 100% on the plant-based diet. If it's a raw detox diet, I want you 100% on that. Not a bite, not a drop, not a crumb. You have to keep the biochemistry of the food in mind. So you can do a plant-based diet 90% of the time or 80% of the time or whatever percent and still have weight loss benefit. And that's great. But if your food is not perfect and you have advanced disease, atherosclerosis, heart failure, and the like, you have to be 100% precise on the diet and not let any of these other foods come into your diet. So if you're eating healthy and losing weight, that's wonderful. And you're getting benefits. I'm not saying you're not, but there may still be some things you need to do. So that's why you need to be 100% on the diet. Quick example, analogy, if I'm going to go and operate and plant a defibrillator, you don't want my gloves to be 95% sterile. Most of the time you're going to be okay, but somebody's going to get in trouble if I'm only 95% sterile. I have to be 100% sterile. So make your diets 100% sterile.
All right. And I'm going to slide one more in from Sue because this is just such a great follow-up. I think she's just a huge oatmeal fan. She says, well, what about eating raw oatmeal for breakfast? I'm guessing she's assuming overnight oats.
That's right. So that's a great question. So raw oatmeal is a quick little thing. If you get the steel cut oats or oat groats and you get, say, a Vitamix blender or one of these powerful blenders or Blendtec, whatever, you can then put the oats in the blender. You can put some steeped water in it. So like water steeped in a pot that you normally make for tea. So the water is a little bit warm. And then put, your herb seasoning, cinnamon or whatever, and you can blend it. So then you have a blended oatmeal. It's warm, but it's not cooked. And so that would be okay. What I will say, though, that oatmeal will still have a slower transit time than, say, raw apples, raw peaches, raw plums. So maybe that's something late morning you can have that would have a little bit faster transit times than if it's fully cooked. But you can have oatmeals in the morning. I wouldn't make it the first meal. Make it, say, midday at brunch time after you've had your raw hydrating foods. I tend to recommend that patients have the the raw hydrating foods, your watermelons or your apples or peaches or plum, the hydrating fruits early in the morning, and let your body hydrate. We also do smoothies and raw juices early in the morning, plus water. You hydrate yourself early in the morning, and then mid to late day, you can have foods like your raw oatmeal or your salads.
All right. I feel like we really are just scratching the surface here, but we are out of time. I know, though, however, if people want to work more with you over at MontgomeryHeart.com, you're offering an online nutritional bootcamp course, and you have a special deal for our viewers today.
Yeah, that's right. So it's, I hope you have in the chat, but it's online.montgomeryheart.com. And it's the online nutritional bootcamp course. The results that you see our patients going through, all of our data, the core component is nutritional detox. And what we decided to do, because we get patients coming from all over the country, different parts of the world, and many people call in and they want to follow the program. So we've made it online. And so I have, it's a very comprehensive program. There are lots of lectures and recipes, and it gives you a step-by-step approach to follow this detox. Plus, it allows you to break the detox with the maintenance program, where we'll also be adding a support group, and your audience will get $100 off. I think my people made it up for the next week, but it's a great program, and the price you pay gives you 1 year access to it, and it renews every year. And we're constantly adding new content, more material. In about a month, you'll have access to our nutritionist and information as well. So that's our website. And then the online boot camp is online.montgomeryheart.com. And I think the discount code is PCRM. You get $100 off. So anyone, it'd be great for a loved one or anyone who wants to detox. We've had great results of people trying to improve their immune system for the pandemic. There's a swine flu that's supposed to be coming out. So you want to have a way of detoxing, cleansing your system on a regular basis. And so that's going to be a good tool that you can use. So I hope you find good use out of that.
Yeah, and you see the link right there to sign up right in the comments section on both Facebook and YouTube. So go ahead, $100 off using the promo code PCRM. Dr. Montgomery, I'm just going to flat out ask you to come back again in the future. This has just been an incredible hour. Thank you so very much for your time.
I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to coming back. Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Montgomery. Follow him on Twitter, by the way, at DRB Montgomery. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, no worries. Go over to Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher and look for the Exam Room podcast by the Physicians Committee. We're going to re-air portions of Dr. Montgomery's interview as well as from the LaJaunie's. We're going to re-air some of that on the podcast tomorrow. So Apple Podcast, look for the Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star rating. Donna, our director, if you can go ahead one more time, please, and pull up this before and after photo of the LaJaunie family. I'm still sharing my screen here. I mean, just look at this extraordinary transformation. And this is just 3 of the members of the family who lost more than 1,000 pounds after going vegan. I mean, what an incredible transformation. This is just phenomenal. So check out Josh LaJaunie online as well. And don't forget to pick up their cookbook, Pure Ambrosia. You can find that on Amazon. And lastly, if you are looking for a plant-based primary care doctor, we've got you covered for that as well. Just head over to the Barnard Medical Center. Visit barnardmedical.org or pick up the phone and call 202-527-7500. Our doctors, our dietitians really put a premium on preventative medicine. Why get sick if you don't have to? Let's treat the root cause and not just put a Band-Aid on the problem. 202-527-7500. Doctors and dietitians can walk you through from beginning to end with your health journey. New patients being accepted for those living in California, New York, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, Missouri, Arizona, Colorado, Massachusetts, and Kentucky. Perhaps more important now than ever during this pandemic. Obviously, there is no immunity from COVID-19, but what we do know is that with the comorbidities that really increase the risk of severity of the virus, we can really help treat a lot of those by modifying our diet and our lifestyle. And everyone at the Barnard Medical Center can certainly help you out with that. Again, visit barnardmedical.org to set up your appointment via telemedicine today. And that is all the time that we have for this particular show. It's been an extra large show all about weight loss, ironically. So thank you guys so very much for tuning in. And thank you as well to our producer, Laura Anderson, and our wonderful director, Donna Steele, behind the scenes. And a big tip of the hat as well to Dr. Baxter Montgomery and everyone in the LaJaunie family. Again, nothing but the continued success to you. And thank you all so very much for sharing your inspiration with us. And on behalf of everyone here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Thanks again so very much for tuning in. Until tomorrow, please remember to take a stand, stay safe, and keep it plant-based.